Hey, and welcome to the Jessica Paul podcast. I'm your host, Jess Paul, actress, manifestation expert, and mindset coach. And I'm here to share with you all of my secrets on confidence, success, and the magic of manifestation. If you're ready to dive in deep and see more success in your career, more money in your bank account, and more love in your life with a whole new level of freedom, then you're in the right place. I'm letting loose on everything you need to take back control of your life, up-level your mindset, and tap into your manifestation powers. I'm so excited that you're here. Hey, you gorgeous souls, and welcome back to another episode of the JP podcast. It is I, Jess Paul, here to help you manifest a life that you freaking love. Your host, your manifestation mentor, your spiritual bestie. We're back, and in today's episode, we've got a special guest. And I said to you guys that I've been kind of like compiling loads of these guest episodes for the past, I don't know, like a month and a half, because with going away to LA very soon, I was just like, right, I want lots of things in the bank for you guys to get stuck into. And even though I'm probably going to be popping back on, like whilst I'm out there recording episodes for you, recording all the content for you, everything whilst I'm out there. But for this week's episode, because I've been really busy. I've been in London last week. I've been seeing all my besties. I've had a few drinks, getting the cocktails in, because you know what? Balance in life is key. I don't really drink anymore, so when I do drink, I can feel it. But I had the best week in London, catching up with everybody. Just kind of like getting ready for this next phase of my life. Lots of planning, lots of prepping going on for moving. But yeah, so into this week's episode, we're going in on a whole conversation around womb manifesting, womb healing, because it's something that I was, again, looking at with all of the work I've been doing on my feminine last year and into this year. You know, it's something I've been interested in myself. And Katie, who we've got on, she also talks about communicating with spirit babies. So literally being able to talk to the souls that are yet to come in onto this earth. It's quite esoteric. There are a lot of these interviews coming up for you guys that are very spiritual, very woo-woo, very out there, which we freaking love for all of my spiritual besties. So get ready, get strapped in for all of them. But in this week's episode, we're diving in on everything to do with womb manifesting, fertility, period cycles, how if you can start to understand your own womanly cycle or your own sacral chakra and that creative space of your womb, how it's going to help you manifest more into your life. So I'm going to introduce Katie and then we'll get right in. So Katie Williams is a femininity and fertility educator and the matriarch of her brand, Katie the Creatress. Katie helps women heal their relationship with their womanhood and ignite their fertility in body and soul to birth a life conceived by their inner wisdom and magic. Originally beginning her business as an intuitive reader and spirit baby medium, she branched into the coaching space after experiencing a deep self-love journey with healing her feminine energy. She bridges the gateways between physical and spiritual worlds through her trio of combining coaching, intuition, and somatic work. Katie's mission is for women to experience the power of the universe's creative energy inside them through their feminine and fertile energy, whether conceiving human life or the 3D existence of their desires. So guys, get stuck into today's episode. I hope you enjoy. As always, do take a little screenshot, tag us both on your Instagram stories if you've loved it, because we love to see who's listened in. And make sure you go and follow me over on Instagram if you're not already, guys. I am Jessica Paul, because as I say, I'm going to be posting all my LA content over there, all the Californian vibes for you guys. So if you want to follow along, then go follow me on there. And without further ado, let's bring today's episode. Welcome, Katie. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited for this chat today because when you contacted me, I was like, okay, let's check this girl out. Let's see what she's up to. And oh my God, I'm intrigued. Like, I'm really intrigued with all the work that you do. We're going to dive into a lot of the topics today, but I thought that a great place to start would be just for you to share a little bit about who Katie is, what goes on in your world, and a bit about your story, really.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie, and I'm a femininity and fertility educator, but with a spiritual twist. So I originally started my fascination with spirituality and manifestation when I was 11 years old. I had my very first crush and I went on Google and I was like, how do I get someone to like me back? And eventually, from going down the rabbit hole, I discovered manifestation. And obviously, I was very young, so I forgot about it after a little bit. And then when I turned 16, I started to get more into it. I started incorporating it into my life. And I ended up going to college for dance, but COVID hit, and I was like, screw this, I'm out. College isn't for me. And I started coming across different intuitive readers online, and it fascinated me. So I started to take different classes in intuition and spirituality, and I grew a deep love for connecting with people's future children, which is
Mm.
still a major part of my work today. But at the same time that I was learning about intuition, I was also healing things related to my feminine energy. So, painful periods, I was having painful sex, anxiety, things like that. And after healing those things, I branched off into combining my work with coaching and somatics.
Mm.
And then I started to realize as I was growing and expanding that manifestations were coming easier. And that has now evolved into teaching how to manifest with the womb, which
Yeah.
I'm super excited to dive into
Yeah.
today. So that is how I got to this point. And yeah, let's keep going. I
Oh my
love
gosh.
getting into these topics.
Well, I love this because you actually contacted me after you heard an episode that I did with my good friend Taylor, and it was all about this femininity, feminine energy. And it's something that I've been working on a lot over 2022. And but when I dug deeper into the work you kind of do, like I was so intrigued first and foremost with the spirit baby thing. And we're gonna get into that. Like we're gonna dig deep into that because I was just fascinated by it. Um, but with the womb healing as well, like this is something that I would love to go into now because I had Reiki not long ago, and when it got to my womb, when she had her hands on my womb, she did say to me, "Oh, you should maybe look into a bit of womb healing." And that wasn't the first time someone had said this to me over 2022. Like there was a number of people who had mentioned it, and then I was like, okay, this must be a universe thing." Um, can you explain a little bit about what womb healing actually is and why women could be going and doing a bit more work on this?
So, womb healing is a combination of using our physical tools in the world as well as energetic tools to create health within our reproductive system. And this is important for women because we have a monthly cycle. That cycle keeps going and going for years on end. But unfortunately, a lot of us have been strayed away from our cycle, and it's not anyone's fault necessarily. It's just that we haven't had the proper tools up until this point to understand our cycle and
Mm,
understand our bodies. So for example, with periods, a lot of us grow up hearing that periods are meant to be painful and uncomfortable, and if anyone listening to this is having that experience right now, it's 100% valid and there's nothing wrong with it,
mm,
but we can create a better experience in our body.
mm,
But now, with new things that we're learning about our hormones as well as energetics, we're saying to ourselves, oh, I don't have to be in pain for 1 week out of the month. I don't have to have mood
mm,
swings. And personally, I used to be that girl who would just lay in bed all day during her period. I used to have really bad bloating, constipation, dizziness, you name it. And so when I started to learn about my hormones and also the way that I was talking to my womb and to my body, I started to see changes. And now periods are actually very pain-free, very cramp-free.
mm, mm,
So there's a collective energy of just unknowingness, not knowing exactly what is going on in our body and trying to avoid it. Because when we're hearing that something is painful and uncomfortable, our first instinct is let me run from this. Let me get
Mm.
away. Let me go focus on something else. But actually diving into this work creates not only a lot more confidence in knowing how our body works and how to take care of our body, but also just feeling good, feeling alive, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for so many years, because we've lived in this such a masculine dominated society, we've been taught that we just have to keep pushing through. And, you know, for example, for me, I, again, very lucky that I have never gone through extreme pain with my periods. However, I feel really out of it. Like I kind of get this out of body experience when I'm on my period. Like I'm not quite here. I'm not quite with it. Like I'm in another reality. It's really weird. And I feel very dizzy. And, a lot of that's going to be to do with iron levels and things like that. But for me as well, at this time, this it's a very intuitive time for a woman. It's a very like, we can tap into a lot of our intuitive gifts around this time. But for so many years, women have just been taught, oh, if you're on your period, you still got to push through. Like, you still got to go to school. You still got to go to work. Like, you can't just rest. Like, that's not how this society works. And I think that means that women aren't really opening up to their full potential because, again, we're leading through this masculine energy, which is, it's kind of shutting us down in a way.
Yeah, and I also want to say that without our masculine energy, there's no support for the feminine. So
Mm-hmm.
while it is still so beneficial to have the drive and the ambition, it's about balancing that with rest. But just
Mm,
like how you said, a lot of us just try to push through it.
mm,
But where we can start is by incorporating the type of rest and balance that we need into our daily lives. Because eventually, the 20-minute meditation every single day will just be a normal feeling in our body. And of course, we will still have the things that we enjoy doing. Maybe you enjoy doing a yoni egg practice or a sensual dance, and I still do those things too.
mm.
But eventually, that feeling of safety and balance becomes our normal, which is so beautiful to
Yeah.
recognize that it can coexist with that
Yes.
drive and ambition that we still have.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's dominantly in their masculine as a woman, and again, because I've had like quite a number of podcast interviews actually about this feminine energy, like this is a big topic in my world at the moment. And I think that a lot of the women that follow me also feel the same way, that, they can fall into this masculine space of like overworking and getting quite stressed out and just feeling like burnt out. And I think that for me, I've had to be quite routine in practicing in the feminine. And like what you were saying there about doing practices like a yoni egg practice or sensual dancing, which I want to ask you more about in a second. But, I have to be routine with it, where I have to go, okay, well, I'm going to do literally, this is how I balanced out my masculine and feminine originally. I was like, I have to do like an hour of masculine, like working hard and actually like, getting my stuff done. But then I'm going to do an hour of feminine, whatever that is to me, whatever feels right in my body. I'm literally going to go an hour of masculine, an hour of feminine, an hour of masculine in my day. And I think that a lot of the time women feel that the feminine isn't work. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot of my clients say to me, oh my God, but, how am I going to scale my business or, get that job of my dreams if I'm just floating around in my feminine all the time? And since like really going into it myself, like actually it is the work. Like if you don't allow yourself to go into that energy, you can't receive.
Yeah, because while they're two different types of energies, they both benefit one another.
Mm,
So, whereas the masculine will do more of the external work, the feminine does breathe more intuition into our lives.
mm,
And that's a very internal experience. So, for example, what I also noticed when I was first working with my masculine and feminine energy was, where is this lack of feminine energy showing up in my life? And for me, I was noticing it a lot in my relationship. So
mm,
the feminine has a lot of trust. The feminine feels safe. the feminine is able to receive. And so I was actually able to look into my romantic relationship and see, okay, where am I not feeling safe? Where am I not feeling trust? And it wasn't anything that the other person was doing. It
Mm.
was my own stuff to work on and heal. So that's how I've been able to balance out masculine and feminine. But as an individual, what you can start doing is pointing out all of the things happening in your day where you are putting energy out and you are also receiving,
Mm.
because it can also be really easy to, especially if anyone listening to this is growing their business, to put out energy, put out energy, put out energy,
Mm.
but then be like, okay, what am I receiving? What am I receiving?
Mm.
And we can feel down on ourselves and then start doing even more past our capacity because we're not noticing all the little things that we are receiving.
Mm.
So I would also recommend that as a daily practice if anyone is like, okay, I don't know which practice I'm going to like. I don't know what I'm going to be into.
Yeah.
You can start there with what energy am I putting out and what has happened that I've been able to receive.
Mm. Amazing. Yeah, and you touched upon that word safety there, which has been for me as well something that I've been working on so much within myself. Because, like you said, we must take responsibility for these feelings that we feel, and we must look inside ourselves and begin to heal what's going on inwardly before anything else, before looking outward and going, well, it was this person's fault because they made me feel unsafe, and I've had to do a lot of work on this myself around dating and men, because I've had situations before where I've not felt safe around men, not in necessarily like in a danger sense, but just in energetically there hasn't been that feeling of safety there for me. And as a woman, that can make it so hard for you to open up and receive when you're not feeling that level of safety. But I think you're so right there with it's not about trying to find the man or the friend or the business partner who can make you feel that way. It's about making yourself feel that way.
Yeah, definitely. And also going off of what you were saying about men and relationships, when I was healing from vaginismus, which is the
Mm.
condition that was causing painful sex, I was looking at my relationship and I was like, okay, there's nothing that I feel unsafe about. Let me look inwards. And I
Mm.
had to unpack a lot of emotions from earlier on in childhood, different traumas. And I realized, okay, I have a theme of simply not feeling safe to open up and
Mm.
to welcome things in.
Mm.
And then I started to connect that with, okay, I've always been an over planner. I've
Mm.
always, quote unquote, needed to know the how, what, when, where, why,
Yeah.
etc. So also when we're working with our feminine energy, we're noticing different situations in our lives that are popping up. We can start connecting the dots to other habits that we've had previously. And the thing is, when we're looking at these situations, oftentimes we will find that we have attached a sense of identity to them.
Mm.
So, for example, when I recognized, like, oh, I've always been an over planner, I still love to plan, but my identity was attached to that grip that I
Mm.
was hanging on to.
Yeah, and it makes it so much harder to let go of these outdated patterns and beliefs when you believe it's a part of you, because that's like ripping yourself apart. And it can be incredibly, this is the healing process though, isn't it? It can feel like you are ripping up your world, like it feeling like you're taking two steps backwards and one step forward sometimes when you're healing. But it's all for such an important opening. And what you said there, like about how you closed off, and I almost in a way feel that I've done that too, where I've kind of shut down, but I've done it in a different way. And I mentioned this on a podcast episode before, where my default and my pattern was to overgive so that there was no room for me to receive, in the sense of like overgiving in ways of sharing too much about myself to people when they first meet me and being like, yeah, this is me, this is my life story, and forgetting that actually sometimes people need to earn those things from you. Like sometimes people need to
Mhm.
earn those parts of you that you are so openly giving away to people. And I think that a lot of people in my creative industry, as well as actors, can kind of fall into this, because so many actors that I know, and I myself was this person, I just wanted to please people. I wanted to be that people pleaser that would just overshare, overgive, be the giver, the provider. And that's how I think I fell so far into this masculine. So it's a really so yeah, so being able to receive is just one of the main things that I've learned as well about being in this,
Mhm.
really grounded in this feminine. Um,
Mhm.
but I would love to hear just a little bit more about, with the womb healing. What exactly is it that you kind of do with the women that you coach and that you hold space for? Because I know as well that you're helping with fertility and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in general, with womb healing, what I love to do is go into trauma work. And I'm not the person that'll have you sit in front of me and just regurgitate your trauma, because that can actually make you feel worse.
Mm,
What we do is we recognize where it's showing up in the body and creating safety in that area. And
mm,
then also learning what it feels like to separate from the feelings that have been familiar for so long. So that's what I do with general womb healing and the women who come in who are working on their feminine energy. But with fertility, while I also like to incorporate that, I also take more of a physical approach with it too, looking at, okay, what's your diet like? I know everyone's like, okay, but how does diet just
yeah,
magically heal painful periods and fertility? Well, we don't realize that maybe on top of the lattes and the Trulies,
yeah.
right? That things can build up. And that's not to say that you should be hard on yourself or think to yourself, well, I'm to blame. It's looking at, okay, these are the decisions I have made. What place did I make those decisions from? And
Mm,
how can I make better decisions going forward? So then we work on healing the cycle, anything that needs to be solved around there, looking at childhood and how you grew up and the type of parent that you want to be, and then connecting with the soul who wants to come in, which the
mm,
term is known as spirit baby. So
mm,
it's a very holistic approach when it
yeah.
comes to fertility, because I've also noticed that sometimes that spirit baby connection can be a missing link in someone's fertility journey. And especially with the souls that are coming in right now and who will be coming in over the next few years, they are highly intellectual. They're
Mm,
coming in at a very unique time in humanity, honestly. And just like how if you would want to maybe talk to someone on the phone before going on a date with them, these spirit babies are saying, hey, let's connect with each
wow.
other. Let's get to know one another. And then that's also really incredible to watch when, from the intuitive perspective, you make a connection with this soul. And it seems like such an abstract concept,
Mm,
and then they come into the world and it's like, oh my gosh, everything has lined up. Everything that came through in the readings are happening now. And
wow.
so it's really cool to witness the synchronicity that occurs.
It's fascinating to me because I've never heard of anybody who works with spirit babies before. Like I've worked with mediums and mediumship before, but not so specifically with spirit babies who have like actually yet to come onto this earth. Um, is that really the way that you connect? Is it through a kind of like mediumship space that you connect with these spirits? Like, how does it actually work for you?
Yeah, so I do it through mediumship, and there's a variety of ways that I can use mediumship to connect with them. So the first time that I connected with my spirit babies, it was through oracle cards. And at the time, I had no clue what spirit babies were. I was just like, it would be kind of cool to connect with my future children. And I've always wanted to be a mom. I'm 21 now, so I don't have kids yet.
Oh wow,
But
yeah, you're young.
yeah, and it was always a desire of mine. Like, that's something that has never changed for me as much as I've evolved.
Mm,
And so I started to communicate with them through oracle cards, and I still like to do that with not only myself, but clients as well. And then I can also connect with them through clairvoyance, which is the psychic sense of seeing,
hmm.
clairaudience, which is the psychic sense of hearing, and there's a few more in there too. And these are actually tools that I teach in my course, Oh Spirit Baby. And
Mm.
not only do we go into those, but we also learn how to communicate with them through learning about their past lives, journaling, doodling. There's a whole lot that we can unpack.
Wow.
So I'm trying to like keep it in one like little gist of a paragraph.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are so many different ways that I like to connect with them through mediumship.
What led you to working with spirit babies? Like, where did this come from for you personally?
I think it was that initial time where I just had curiosity
Mm,
for wanting to connect with my future children. And I just started to do it more and more. And I started to notice little synchronicities come up. So I would do experiments where it would be like, okay, if you are in my energy, show me a ladybug by the end of
yeah.
the day. And I would see one. And it's funny because ladybugs have become a main symbol of communication between me
Oh,
and one of my
nice.
spirit babies. So it was curiosity and experimentation. And
Mm,
then I started to do readings for other people, and it just kept growing and growing. So it's
yeah.
kind of been like a snowball effect that has
Yeah.
happened.
I love it. It's so specific, so niche. I want to ask what your opinion is on spirit babies that maybe are from past lives. I'm asking this like again, I'm not sure whether this is something you dive into, but I'm asking this because for me personally, I've always felt very, very connected to a baby, babies or spirit babies or whatever it may be, whether that's going to be in this lifetime for me, because I know that I do want to be a mum. Um, or whether it's in a past life, because I've been through some regression type experiences and sessions before, and the same thing has come up for me. Again, I've not really shared a lot of this on the podcast yet. Like there's so many things that happened to me last year that I'm gonna go into more, but you know, for me, this one thing that kept coming up was that I had a baby in a past life, and my baby actually died. And it was like a really like horrible process for me in that past life. And I, as I say, had done some more energy clearing and Reiki sessions last year. And what came up was just that I was holding on to so much grief. And so I wonder, do you ever work with spirit babies that have been from past lives, or, you know, that aren't necessarily from this lifetime? Do you go into any of that?
Yeah, definitely. And the cool thing about spirit babies is, for example, let's say you decided that you wanted to call in that spirit baby, you have that choice in doing so. So a lot of times when we're dealing with things like grief, whether in the present lifetime or previous lifetimes, our spirit baby will understand whatever decision it is that we decide to make, whether we want to bring them in or not. So
Mm,
what I notice a lot of times in working with spirit babies who have previous lifetimes with the person that I am doing the reading for is that they have all those memories, but because they are not here in the physical body, they can see more perspectives than we can
mm,
within our own human mind. And so when they're looking at the different things that have happened, while they acknowledge our feelings and they're coming to us with compassion, they are also coming from the place of this is the lesson learned from this experience, from that experience, and we can grow from it and we can learn from it.
It's like having mini spirit guides, like mini me spirit
Exactly.
guides.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I love to encourage everyone, whether you desire to have children right now or not, because even though they are a soul who is choosing to come into another lifetime,
Mm,
they're also here to guide us. And not
mm.
all spirit babies will be our son or daughter. Sometimes they can be um, the child of a friend
Or a niece,
or a
or
brother
yeah,
or a sister.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's not always about conceiving.
Mm.
While it's very helpful during the conception process on an energetic level, they are also full of wisdom and guidance. And so that's why I love to encourage, like, hey, even if you're not in a relationship or trying to conceive, that soul has a whole lot of wisdom to share with you.
I resonate with that so much. My sister's just had a baby. My sister had a baby uh, just, just 6 weeks ago now, right? And this baby, I felt so strongly. It was such a spiritual soul coming onto this earth. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like there was a lot of spiritual teachers and or spiritual gurus that kind of like I follow that I've noticed all had babies in 2022. And I was like, wow, like
Yeah,
literally all
yeah,
of
I
them.
noticed it. Yeah,
Yeah, right?
every time I would pop up like Instagram, I would be like, oh, that person's pregnant. Now
Yeah.
that person's pregnant. Now that person is. It was just like it kept going and going.
It was and I honestly, when my sister had her baby, because we didn't know whether literally it was the 20th of December, like it was so near to the new year, and I was like, no, I just know this baby's going to be born in 2022 and there's a reason for it. I don't know, I just feel that the souls, as you say, coming in now, it's a very strange time for them to come in, and it is ultimately to heal the planet. That's my belief. That is my belief here. And we like I talk a lot about I've spoken a lot about the three waves of volunteers, indigo children, crystal children, rainbow children. Do you think there's like a new wave coming?
I feel like there is. I haven't looked into specific terminology around it,
Mm,
but it does feel like a new wave. But this is also coming up to mention because we're talking about like, all these spiritual people and teachers
yeah.
who are giving birth. And while every soul has a life purpose, it's not always a huge, like, grand thing. So
Mm,
while each of us come here with a purpose, it varies from person to person.
mm,
So all of these spirit babies that are coming through, while they may be coming in at a very unique time and they definitely have a higher level of consciousness, they're still going to have different pathways in life.
mm,
One person might be that woman on stage speaking to a million people, and another soul might be the one who starts a huge farm
mm.
and creates a revolution in the way that we eat and consume food. So it varies from soul to soul as
Mm,
well, but it's definitely like an energetic upgrade in a sense. And it's not that any souls beforehand weren't as highly evolved or intellectual or anything,
mm,
but because we are already paving the path here on Earth in the physical, these souls are going to have an advantage in
yeah.
getting in tune with who they are and how they are
Mm.
able to serve the world.
Yeah. When you connect with these spirit babies, what sort of information do you really connect to? Are you finding out the names of these babies? Like, are they telling you names, or are they telling you what they're going to be doing? Like, what kind of communication do you have?
Mhm. So first, I love to connect with their personality and just get a feel for how they like to communicate because that'll then help me to choose which tools I want to use to communicate with them. So I definitely always start with personality and then going into asking them, what is your connection with so and so? Do you have any past lifetimes together? And then learning about their life purpose. And then every once in a while, I do like to see if I can channel a name because sometimes when names come through, I will tell a client, and either that'll be a name that they were already thinking about, or it'll be the name of like a family member or someone who's important to them. So that can sometimes come through as confirmation. But a lot of times I do like to let the spirit baby lead the conversation once I get to understand their personality and how they like to communicate. But the common theme that I've seen with all the spirit babies that I've been connecting with for the past couple of years is that they're very open and they're very transparent. They are more than happy to open up and share information. It's like it feels like a homecoming in a sense when the
Wow.
channels of communication are opened.
Because I always say as well, through a lot of the inner child work that I've done and that I teach my own clients, we can learn so much from kids. Like, I think that it's fascinating that we're able to learn these lessons from these souls before they are even like conceived. Is it before that you've even conceived, or are you working with women that know they're pregnant?
I've done a mixture of both. So I've connected with spirit babies who haven't been conceived yet, and I've
Wow.
connected with spirit babies in the womb.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that there are different ways of communication that they like to use depending on whether they've been conceived yet or not. So, for example, um, if they haven't been conceived yet, they like to communicate through through visuals or through dreams.
Mm.
Whereas if they're in the second trimester, they'll resort to more like feeling type of sensations
Wow.
because their body is physically growing. So they know that they can use that physical body to send signals.
Wow.
So the way that they like to communicate does vary based on where they're at in their development, but they're still able to communicate with us on a psychic level. And after childbirth, actually, I personally haven't done this yet with someone who's already had a baby who wants to communicate with them, but we can still connect with them on a spiritual level. They might not be sending the dreams or the visuals anymore,
Mm.
but because of all the communication beforehand, then we can notice, okay, I remember this is something they said they wanted in their room. I remember they said that this is the way that they want to be held. And so we can use all that prior information to create a really beautiful environment for them in the physical.
Wow. And all of this makes so much sense to me because, even recently, one of my sister's friends who actually got pregnant just after my sister, really. It was a really nice coincidence. But she actually said to me that she had had a dream before she conceived, before she knew she was pregnant, um of a little girl that came to visit her in her dream, and and she knew it was her baby, and it was a little girl. And she actually did find out the gender. She's yet to have her baby, but she found out the gender, and it's a little girl. And it was such a vivid dream that she'd had. And this is someone that's actually not, she's not very like spiritual herself. She doesn't really do any of this work. Like this conversation, she'd probably be like, what the hell? But like, she's not in my circle, but she had this vivid dream and she was telling me about it. And for me, like, this is just a process of us being more in tune with these things that do come through for us, because they are always coming through for us. And obviously your work is a platform for people to really dive in deep with it. What would you say, Katie, to the woman who, like talk about the opposite, right? Because I've got a lot of high achieving women on that listen to this podcast that maybe they don't want kids, or maybe they're just like, no, like I couldn't think of anything worse right now, like my body does not want to do that. We know that, like, obviously the womb space is also a space of creativity and creation in
Mhm.
general, because I talk about this a lot within my own work. You know, this is the space where you're going to create every single business idea, every single career trajectory idea, like everything comes from this space. Can you talk a little bit more about this sacral chakra and how it was really your space of creativity?
Yeah, so I like to share that our fertility is a human expression of the creative energy of the universe. So
Mm,
like you said, this is a space of creation. This is our source of creation, not just for creating physical human life, but also birthing the 3D existence of our desires.
yeah.
And actually, when I started incorporating my womb into manifestation, I was blown away.
Yeah.
And I realized like it's because I'm working with biology. I'm
Mm,
working with this body that I was born with, and the womb is created with the intention to conceive and to birth. And before I go any further, if there's any woman listening to this where you're struggling with infertility or something similar, your power is not being taken away. And so I just wanted to say that because I know I'm using these words of conceiving desires and
yes,
birthing
it's so
desires.
important.
Mhm. That energetic ability is not taken away.
Mm.
So if there's any woman listening to this where you're thinking to yourself, okay, but I can't conceive, I can't birth, sure, there may be something happening physically
Mm.
to conceive a physical human life, but also know that your energetic ability is always there and will always be there.
I think that's really important, because also any of my men who listen in, because I do have males that listen into this podcast, you know, you have a creative womb space too, even though you don't have a womb, like that chakra, that sacral chakra is there in every single human being. And so I think that's really important, because we all have this creative space. Yeah.
Yes. So for the women, going back to the original question, I know I
Yeah.
kind of like went off a little
Yeah.
bit. For the women who are high achieving, maybe don't want children, the womb is still a highly important space because your reproductive health is actually a reflector of
Mm,
things that could be happening in your overall physical body or energetic health.
mm,
And actually, during our periods are like a monthly report card for our overall health.
mm,
So even if you are the woman who doesn't want children, doesn't have that desire, your period may still be there. You still have a womb, and that womb is there to guide you and to
mm,
make sure that you can be in optimal health, both physically and energetically.
mm.
And you can also use the 4 phases of your cycle to manifest the things that you want in other areas of life.
Can we just quickly go over like the 4 stages of our cycle, of our period cycle, just for women listening in that are like, I literally don't know anything about my cycle. Can we just briefly go over what they are?
Sure. So the first phase of our cycle is menstruation, which is when we have our period. And then we have our follicular phase, which is the time where the follicles around the eggs in our ovaries start to strengthen and mature. And then we have ovulation, which is when a mature egg is released into the fallopian tubes and preps for conception. And then we have our luteal phase, which
Mm-hmm.
comes right before menstruation.
Mm-hmm. And then energetically, for everybody listening, like you've got the different stages where you're gonna want to curl up in a ball and sleep and rest, and then you've got the stages where you're going to want to like actually get up and do and create and take action. Could you go over what those stages are energetically?
So menstruation is known as our inner winter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the time, as you said, to like curl up and
Yeah.
rest and relax. And this is also a great time for intention setting because
Mm,
we're releasing the energy from the previous month and we're starting a new cycle. The
mm,
first day of our new cycle begins on the first day of our period. And then the follicular phase is really great for planning, getting things in line,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like the preparation. And then ovulation is great for putting things out into the world. So this would be the perfect time to launch a new project or
Mm.
to go on a date, because this is also when our energy is at its highest. And during
Yes.
ovulation, we release a very small amount of testosterone. That level comes up. So, yes, as women, we also have this hormone. It's not
Yep.
as much as the men, but we still have it. So when that rises, we have higher creativity, higher libido. So this is the time to do very
Mm.
external, physical, energetic packed
Mm-hmm.
things. And then during the luteal phase, we can use this as a time for reflection and to also give ourselves a bit of a lull. So
Mm.
we're in this in between stage of putting out a lot of external energy and about to go into our internal resting inner winter. So that can
Mm.
be used as a time for reflection. And I feel like there was something that I wanted to mention, but it slipped my mind. So if I remember, I'll be sure to
Yeah, absolutely. This
go
happens
back
to me all the
in.
time. No, 100%. And I think all of this is really important because as we were saying before, your womb space, this sacral space of creativity, it's not just for birthing actual children, but it is for birthing all of these ideas. And I live by this in my business. I am very intuitive with the way I work, and this is what I encourage so many of the people I teach to be as well, because a lot of the time I'm listening to my intuition and it's always telling me, okay, launch this thing now. And it's always when I'm in those particular phases in my cycle that work for that. But it was funny that you mentioned with going on a date, and like making sure you're in that stage of your cycle. It can seem so funny that we're like thinking so much about where we're at in our cycle throughout the month and kind of prepping and planning. But actually, when you get used to it and you actually like really try and map out this cycle, you flow so much easier. Everything becomes easier, and actually you're having those huge periods of rest, because if you really think about it, there's only like 1 week in the month where we're like, right, I'm ready to get up and fricking go. You know what I mean? Like, as a woman, that's kind of crazy to think, but if you follow the cycle, actually in that 1 week you can get shit done that you would be spending like a whole month over in one
Mhm.
week if you follow the cycle. And I think that it's really important for women to know that with anything, it almost feels like you're birthing these new ideas, this new business, this new career, whatever it is that you're wanting to go into, like it is coming from that space. And
Mhm.
also for those women who maybe their cycles are a bit irregular, what would you say to the woman whose cycles are a bit irregular and or maybe that are even on the pill? Because that's a topic going into like contraception. Like, we're probably not going to cover that today because it's probably like a big topic that you could go into on.
Oh
But
yeah, it's a huge one.
yeah, like, so we probably don't have like tons of time to go into that today. But like, for the woman who maybe is on contraception or whose periods have just always been a little irregular, what would you say to them?
So first of all, I remembered what I was going to say, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say that really quick before I answer the question. But also with birthing new things, I know we
Mm,
mentioned ovulation as the time to birth new projects, but
yeah.
also sometimes our periods, depending on your intention, can also hold the space for that. So
Mm,
for me personally, I do my courses and programs online. So when I have my period, I'm in a state of rest and surrender, which is sometimes the better time for me to release that new project. But maybe if you're doing something different, like speaking on stage or
yeah.
having a meeting, then you would want to pair that with ovulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I'm so happy I remembered that because it like slipped my mind.
No,
And I
but
was like,
it's
where to
it's
go?
it's true. It's true because actually, like, I just remembered something that I was going to say as well about the dating thing, because I went on a date recently and it didn't turn out very well. Those of you that want to hear about that, it's in my previous podcast episode. It's in, well, one of the podcast episodes way back. But I went on this date and I realized that just started my period, and I was in this phase where I really needed to just rest and I really needed to just curl up in a ball and because I was in that kind of like out of body experience type place. And I just remember getting to the state and thinking, oh my gosh, like this is the worst time for me to do this. And then just having to like knuckle down and like actually be there and be like fully present. But again, like even planning things such as dating is it's really beneficial to actually know your cycle. So yeah. But anyway, for those people that are do have irregular cycles, what would you say to them?
So I would recommend starting your own little calendar. So
Mm.
even though right now you might not be able to look at your cycle and exactly pinpoint what is happening at what point, create your own calendar.
Mm.
So even today, let's say your last period was, I'll say 50 days ago. Start with that. Start with your inner winter, your menstruation,
Mm-hmm.
and give that a window of like 5 days, depending on how long your cycle usually is. I know mine, like, it's such a long process. It's like a 7 day thing. It's
Yeah.
just really slow.
Yeah.
But yeah, map that out depending on what your previous experience with your period is and give that a window of time. And then give your follicular phase a window of time and then do the same thing for the other two phases. So that way you're able to start embodying the different energies of those phases while you are still working on healing irregular periods or if you're on birth control. So that way you can still have the benefit of
Mm.
being in that cycle and working with your body and with your womb's energy.
Mm. Oh, amazing. This chat has been like we have covered so many bases, and it's as I say, like I was really intrigued to have this chat with you. I would love for you to maybe give just like to finish, like maybe give some tips on how women can my women listening, how they can go away and practice more on working with this womb space or and this sacral chakra um and this creativity space, ways that they can either work in that space or even like a tip for connecting to your spirit baby if people listening want to have a go at that.
Sure. So I'll give a couple of tips for both. So for womb healing, I would recommend starting to take a few seconds at a time out of your day to find something that you appreciate about your womb and to also include your womb in decision making. We make so many decisions a day, whether they're big or small, and tuning into your womb and feeling into, okay, what is the right decision to make? And you might notice that your womb feels a little more relaxed if it's something that you should go for, or maybe it'll tighten and it's a sign that maybe this isn't the right decision to make. Our womb has intuition. So this is a way to start tapping into that intuition. And then also, I love intuitive eating.
Mm.
And we can align our foods and what we're consuming to the different phases of our cycle. So during menstruation, it's really beneficial to eat red foods and foods that
Right.
warm up the body. During ovulation, it's beneficial to eat more fruit. During our luteal phase, which is our inner autumn, that's a great time to eat things like pumpkins and sweet potatoes and
Interesting.
carrots, like those orange foods. So, also using that tool of intuitive eating to connect with your womb. It's more of like an indirect way, but it does have that physical effect and it does benefit the body.
That's really
And
interesting.
then, yeah, and it also helps with balancing hormones because we're able to give our body the different nutrients that it needs at those different times
Mm.
of the month.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then for spirit babies, What you can do is, first of all, I love recommending going into a spirit baby meditation just to make like that first point of contact and get a feel for who they are and their energy. And I have a meditation on my website and my YouTube channel.
Right.
So you can go listen to that if you're interested.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can start small, and it can be something like, okay, if you're here in my energy, send me a rainbow in the next 24 hours, and then let it come. And if you don't receive the sign that you were looking for, it's not that the spirit baby has just like disappeared or that they're not here. There might just be a different form of communication that they like better. So you can start experimenting with those, learning how to tap into clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, all the things. Just giving yourself a lot of tools in your toolkit, because there's more than one way to communicate with them. And that's something that's really beautiful about the process, is that we can use a variety of different ways to connect with them.
Amazing. Oh, Katie, thank you so much. This has been such an interesting chat. I'm really glad you got in contact with me over this. And I know that we're actually doing a little podcast swap. So I'm going to be appearing on your podcast soon too, which is very exciting. I would love for you to just share where my audience can find you, and any offers that you might have going at the moment.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and TikTok at Katie the Creatress. My website is katiethecreatress.podia.com. And you can go on that website and literally just have a feast with the freebies, the downloads, and there are also programs on there. So
Amazing.
There's womb wisdom if you want to learn more about connecting with the intuition in your womb, menstruation magic, Oh Spirit Baby. And my main program that is currently open for enrollment is The Creatress, which is all about learning how to tap into your womb's intuition, heal your menstrual cycle and your feminine energy, then activating it to be a magnet for what it is that you are calling in. So that's my main program. There's a lot that you can look at on there. I could go on forever, but have a feast on the website, and I'm pretty active on Instagram as well.
And of course, like, if you guys have loved this chat and found it interesting, do make sure to take a little screenshot, tag us on your Instagram stories, tag Katie there too, so that we can see who's listened in and we can see who has been landing with. But thank you so much, Katie, for spending time with me today, and I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who you think would love it too. And if you want to let me know how you found it, just screenshot this episode, add it to your Instagram story, and tag me at I am Jessica Paul so that I can throw all the love right back at you. And of course, subscribe, hit those 5 stars, and leave a review to show your support and to keep the good stuff coming. Sending you so much love and gratitude from your girl Jess.